The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday. It's a Wednesday night. All right. Crazy week in front of me. So I don't know. Next 10 days or so, shows are going to be a little scattered. We'll see what we can do. But tomorrow I fly to Denver. I'm going to give a talk in Denver on Friday. Yep, got some meetings in Denver. Then I fly to LA. I'm going to spend the weekend in LA. And then fly back to Puerto Rico on Tuesday. So I'll try to do shows from my hotel Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But we will see. And then once I get to Puerto Rico, I'll be here like 2 nights, but one of those is my wedding anniversary, so no show that day. And then I fly to Florida for the big debate with John Mackey. I'll be debating John Mackey on Thursday of next week, February 18th, on conscious capitalism and conscious leadership, his new book. So that should be a lot of fun if you're in the Florida area. If you're anywhere close to Orlando, you should come visit. It should be cool. It'd be nice to see you. I'll be doing a book signing, selling some books, doing book signing, and so come on over. Florida, the Villages, Orlando, Thursday. It'll be a live event, real people, 3-dimensional. You'll be able to see them in 3 dimensions. I don't know, 100, 200 people. I don't know how that works with social distancing, or if they're going to have social distancing, or what the hell they're doing. But we're doing this debate. So if you want more information about it, just Google Yaron Brook, Orlando, the Villages, debates, John Mackey, something like that, and it pops right up. It's the first thing that shows up. The video will be available in the days following. There will be video available after that, so it should be a lot of fun. We'll see how challenging it will be to debate John Mackey, who's a smart guy and obviously very accomplished, very successful guy. All right, today we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about today? Oh my God. Today's going to be depressing. We're going to talk about insanity on the left and insanity on the right. We're going to talk about conspiracy theories and fake everything and the solutions proposed by the left and the right. It's nothing good. Yeah, nothing good. No good stuff today. Just more depressing news. But this is the world in which we live. I mean, I keep reading stuff, regularly now. Just the conspiracy theories are everywhere. The conspiracy nuttiness is really everywhere. You've got this crazy impeachment trial where President Trump's lawyers are completely incomprehensible, and they're just weird and strange and don't make any sense and can't complete sentences. And these are the best lawyers in the world to represent the former president of the United States. This is what they found. It's just a very, very, very strange world. And then you've got the election software companies, Dominion and this other software company whose name I can't remember, suing for libel all the people that accuse them of fraud. That's going to be interesting. I can't wait for those trials. But that's going to be fascinating to track. Sidney Powell and Giuliani have just made crazy accusations completely devoid of any evidence or facts or connection to reality. And they seemingly got away with it until what you find is some of these companies are willing to fight for the truth and willing to stand up to them and actually willing to sue them for libel for like billions of dollars, not even millions, billions of dollars. So it's going to be fascinating now to see how this all plays out. I mean, I'm so happy to see Dominion suing these bastards. It's going to be so much fun to watch them try to defend themselves. Oh, yeah, there was fraud. Well, come on, show us. Here's the machine in front of a court of law. Show us what you did. And not only that, I mean, Lou Dobbs has been fired from Fox. I have to admit, couldn't be happier. Couldn't stand Lou Dobbs. Actually met Lou Dobbs. He thought I would be an ally. He pretended that he was pro-capitalism, and so I was. When he used to have a radio show, he invited me to the studio, and we did an interview. And within 5 minutes into the interview, maybe it was 2 minutes into the interview, he figured out that I was an atheist. And he just went off. He started yelling at me and screaming at me, and he was just incensed. Not to mention, once we got into issues of trade and immigration, his head kind of exploded. It was just, and I was in the room with him. It was just bizarre to watch. He was out of control, completely out of control. And this was on the radio, not on TV. So it was bizarre. But Lou Dobbs was fired because, nobody knows really, but it looks like he was fired because of the claims he made about election fraud and the whole Dominion thing. So not only was Fox News sued, but they sued a bunch of the Fox News. He was sued. Bartoloma was sued, and Perino, something like that was sued, and the next morning he was gone. He was gone. Newsmax has now had to retract their stories. So the nice thing is, what I like about all this is the market is working. The legal market, if you will, is working, right? You libel somebody, they sue you. You have to apologize. You have to withdraw. You have to lay off people. You have to, you have to adjust. You have to accommodate the truth. You have to accommodate the truth, because the fact is that once you start accusing people of stuff coming out of crazy conspiracy theories detached from reality, people are going to call you on it, and people are going to sue you for it, and there are legal, monetary consequences to it. And it's a great mechanism to maybe bring back the pendulum towards truth and away from complete and utter fantasy. Unfortunately, it only works when you actually libel somebody. If you just make up stuff but don't libel anybody in particular, you can get away with all kinds of conspiracy theories and craziness and nuttiness. The Shadowblade says, "It is my birthday and I got a new job today." Congratulations, that's terrific. Can I get a shout out? Absolutely. I don't know who the Shadowblade is, but the Shadowblade gets a shout out. Keep up the quality content you're on, a highlight of my day. Well, thank you, even when it's so depressing. Good news is the market works. The libel market works. The legal market works. It's great, right? So happy birthday to Shadowblade, and congratulations on the new job. Yes, in spite of all the crap in the world, I don't know, crap counts as a swear word? Do I get some super chat dollars for saying crap 3 times now? In spite of all the bad stuff in the world, good stuff will happen to good people. You just keep at it. You just don't give in. Don't give up. Don't focus on politics. Don't focus on the crap. Focus on your life. Focus on the good, and good stuff will happen to you. Because the world is still not as corrupt as some would pretend that it is. So I've been reading about the lawsuit. It's going to be really interesting. I want to see how it plays out. I'm going to be following this and keep you updated about the legal battles that Fox has and that Giuliani has, and that and it's really going to be interesting. But I wanted to talk today about 2 essays that I read. So all this really bad stuff is going on. I'm reading a lot, trying to keep up with what the craziness of the world is throwing at us. And I read 2 articles, one in the New York Times, and I know I'm not supposed to read the New York Times, but you have to know what your enemy's thinking. You have to know the enemy. So I read the New York Times. And by the way, where else are you going to get actual reporting? Because, the mainstream media is still the only place where they actually have reporters that go out and report. So everybody ultimately uses mainstream media in one way or another. Anyway, so I read this op-ed, I guess, editorial in the New York Times with a kind of a left-wing slant. And then I read this article in the Federalist, which is, of course, a pro-Trump, right-wing publication. And both, the one in the New York Times was like, okay, this is what the Trump administration, this is what the Biden administration should be doing. This is how we deal with all these conspiracy theories and all this fake news and all this lack of truth and the unreality that exists out there. Unreality existing, that's an interesting. Holy jeez, Daniel says, crap isn't a bad word. Well, but I still got $5 out of you. That's good. By the way, Super Chat's been slipping a little bit, so I don't know where all my whales are. I guess they got tapped out in January, but anyway, I have to redo my calculations redo my expectations. You guys spoiled me over the last 5 months, I guess, up to January were phenomenal Super Chat months. So we'll see. We'll see if we can keep it up. Maybe there'll be a resurgent later in February. Or maybe we'll just have to wait for March for a resurgent as people save up some money so they can support the Yaron Brook Show. Michael has been consistent supporter using Super Chat of the show. So thank you, Michael. So let's start with the piece in the New York Times. This is oh wow. Jamie says all my Super Chat fans bought GME stock and took losses probably. No, that can't be because I told them to sell. And, if they're fans, they would have done what I told them, right? There's Michael. I told them to sell at the peak, close to the peak. They could have made a fortune if they wrote it up. By the way, I don't know where GME closed today, but it was under 50 at some point. Remember when it was over 400? And it's heading to below 40, maybe below 20. So, markets work in the end. You can't cheat them. And by the way, just as an aside, for what it's worth, Wall Street is still standing. The GME, the Reddit gang did not destroy Wall Street. So, as always, I tell it like it is. I make predictions that turn out to be true. And I don't have 1 million followers in spite of that, right? Lots of people have 1 million followers whose predictions are complete crap. I said it again. And mine are right on, spot on, accurate, and I don't have 1 million followers. Jimmy Cook says is at 51. Yeah, I noticed it's bouncing around. It hit under 50 and then bounces around 50, and what's interesting is the people buying them right now at 50 when it's not worth 50. It's just not worth 50. So a lot of people are going to lose money, even at $50, and that's too bad, right? All right, let's see. All right, let's take this New York Times article. It's written by a guy named Derek Brainey. I've never heard of him. The title of the piece is How the Biden Administration Can Help Solve a Reality Crisis. You see, we're in a reality crisis. The problem is that many Americans, a significant number of Americans, are completely detached from reality. And the examples he gives are, the kind of examples you'd expect in the New York Times. So I guess there was some YouTube videos that claimed that the inauguration of Biden was a pre-recorded hoax that was filmed on a Hollywood soundstage. I guess some people bought into that. Then, of course, there's a QAnon where they're still trying to figure out why Trump didn't declare martial law and ride Biden out of town and take over. And, what happened to all those pedophiles? Supposedly, Trump was going to clear Washington, D.C. and really the world from satanic pedophiles, all associated with the Democratic Party. And then you've got news channels that continuously tell us that, the election was stolen. You've got a significant number of people, 70% of Republicans believe Trump legitimately won the election. 40% of Americans believe that COVID-19 was manufactured in a Chinese lab, not escaped from a Chinese lab, manufactured there. So these examples of unreality, of claims that are just untrue, or some claims that are so arbitrary that they have no cognitive value, they have no cognitive meaning. They're just words disassociated from reality. And you could go on and on and on with the conspiracy theories, right? I mean, just watch Alex Jones. Some of the school shootings didn't actually happen. Or watch a new congresswoman, I forget from what state she is, Marjorie, something like that, who claims that the California fires were started by lasers from outer space, I guess created and produced by Jews. Jews caused the fires in California. It's just nuts. She's a congresswoman. Can you imagine this woman being a congresswoman? And then can you imagine a political party like the Republicans, who claim to be the party of sanity, not doing anything to her, not eliminating, taking committee appointments from her or anything like that? It's just bizarre. The Republican Party has figured out that the party itself is run by conspiracy theory junkies, and that they better play along with the conspiracy theories. They better cultivate the conspiracy theories if they want to have any chance in getting any votes. But that's horrific. But you could add, of course, to the lack of reality that is mentioned here. Michael, thank you. I'll get you a question in a little bit. You can add to the unreality here, of course, catastrophic global warming. We're going to all die from overheating or overcooling or over climate change or whatever. The fact that storms are getting stronger because of climate change. I mean, the more people are dying because of climate change. The unreality of so much of the environmentalist movement. What about the unreality of the economic policies of the Biden administration and the left more broadly? Or maybe why don't we include in this list of unreality and conspiracy theories MMT, or at least certain versions of MMT, where you can just print your money into prosperity. You don't need to produce. We don't need to actually have a private sector. You got 9/11 truthers. That's more on the right. I'm thinking more people on the left who believe socialism hasn't yet been tried. I mean, that's like flat earthers. That's basically the equivalent of flat earthers. So, yeah, I mean, there is a ton of unreality there. And standing here as an objectivist, God, there's unreality everywhere in terms of what people actually hold in their minds. How many people are actually connected to reality? Connected to truth, know history, know facts, have actually studied events, know what's going on. Anyway, so I agree. The conspiracy theories are nuts, and the conspiracy theories on the right are insane. And the fact that the Republican Party has become a conspiracy theory political party that doesn't believe in the rule of law is truly scary. That this is now a dominant part of a political party. So I agree with all that, although I see it at a much bigger problem because I see all the nuttiness and insanity and detachment from reality on the left. So what is the solution that Derek offers? Because he says, what do we do? You know, we've got to, establish some kind of unity in this country. We've got to be able to solve problems. We've got to solve this problem. And he says, so he went out to all kinds of experts at all universities, I guess. And he asked them a simple question. What should the Biden administration do to fix our truth-challenged information ecosystem? I like that. Truth-challenged. Fake. Truth-challenged information ecosystem. Or at least, what can the Biden administration, because we know politics solves everything. To solve things, we need politicians to do more. The more politicians do. So how do we do this? What does Biden do? Now remember, Biden of stimulus package Biden. Talk about, I did a show about voodoo economics, right? Biden of voodoo economics Biden. Biden is going to fix our truth-challenged information ecosystem. How is he going to, Biden of the catastrophic global warming Biden, Biden of the, we can manage fine without fossil fuels Biden. That kind of fake news Biden. What's he going to do to fix our truth-challenged information? Well, a Harvard University professor, the research director of the Harvard University Schornstein Center on Media, Politics, and the Public Policy suggests that as part of dealing with at least the, stealing the election issue, we should set up, or the Biden administration, not we, Biden administration, set up a truth commission, similar to the 9/11 Commission, to investigate the planning and execution of the Capitol siege on January 6th. This effort would ideally be led by people with deep knowledge of the many networked factions that coordinated and carried out the riot, including white supremacist groups and far-right militias. A truth commission in Congress. We'd bring them all together and we'd figure out what the truth is. Congress will do that. Congress, the bastion of truth, the bastion of facts, the bastion of integrity. Congress will decide what the truth is. I mean, these people are insane. I mean, you remember the 9/11 Commission? Did anybody read the 9/11 Commission report? There was a lot of interesting things there. But they whitewashed huge parts about the 9/11 attacks. Who is responsible? I mean, to this day, the Truth Commission around 9/11 will not tell us the truth about the role of Saudi Arabia in 9/11. Or for that matter, the role of Iran. You want politicians to assist in judgment of the truth? To put aside their partisan nonsense? To put aside their ideologies, which for the most part are detached from truth and reality, and engage in a truth commission? I mean, you remember, I don't know how many sessions of Congress you've sat through or heard their speeches and stuff. I mean, it's sickening. The nonsense that comes out of politicians' mouths. And I don't know if you saw when they interrogated the tech executives, or during the financial crisis, the finance executives, the bankers, or the automobile executives during the financial crisis. These people, these grandstanding, ignorant, pretentious non-entities, they're going to come out with the truth. And we know that if Congress votes to establish the truth about the elections, the American people are just going to say, oh, whoops, sorry that I followed QAnon for all these years. Now that there's a truth commission, now that Congress has told me what the truth is, what reality actually is about, I give up all my conspiracy theories. I give up all my fantasies. I am now dedicated to truth and honesty and objective reality because, hey, Congress had a truth commission. A little bit of sarcasm there. I hope some of you were smiling, maybe laughing when I said that. I don't know. It's one of the frustrations of doing these shows is I can't see you. It's like I imagine you being entertained, but I can't actually see it. I'm told I don't have a sense of humor, and that's why I don't have as many followers as Michael Malice or whatever. So these experts, they want a comprehensive threat assessment of domestic extremism after the Capitol riots. But they caution that categorizing these extremists as domestic terrorists, while understandable, could backfire. I wonder why, when 70% of Republicans think the election was stolen. Yeah, let's just... Now, I think they were terrorists, and I think they should be categorized as domestic terrorists. But this is all done in the name of unity and in the name of discovering the truth, when this appears to be purely partisan. By the way, what would the Truth Commission is going to do with Antifa and BLM and critical race theory? Are they going to declare those untrue? Are they also going to filter those through a reality check? Now, other experts recommended a different approach. They recommended that we put together a cross-agency task force. A cross-agency task force. This is a problem that affects both domestic, international, health, tech. And since the government is involved in all of those, we need a cross-agency task force. That is going to tackle disinformation and domestic extremism. And this task force should be led by something like, quote, this is so unbelievable. I find it hard to believe that I'm actually going to say this. So they actually are arguing that this task force to tackle disinformation and domestic extremism be led by a, quote, reality czar. You know how there was a drug czar and an economy czar, and it's like a cabinet member with superpowers, right? The other cabinet members report to him. He's a czar. I mean, the very idea of a czar in America is cringeworthy. It's horrific, right? A czar, a dictator with unlimited power. But we've got a czar who's now responsible for reality. He gets to decide what reality is. Well, he has a task force to decide what reality is. Don't pay attention to your senses. Don't use your own mind. Don't use reason. Don't look for experts, scientists, or others. No. We will now have an intergovernmental agency, interdepartmental governmental agency, cross-agency, which will have a task force, which will then be ruled, governed by a reality czar. Now, I thought maybe this article was written in jest, but it's not. This is New York Times. Nobody thought to edit this. A truth czar, a ministry of truth. No, not like 1984. No, not like 1984. Jesus, you always jump to the worst conclusions. No. Some dissent will be allowed. But the reality is, we'll have to decide what's acceptable dissent and what's not acceptable dissent. It will have to be within the parameters set forth by the reality czar, or really by reality. Right? Those dissenters who are within the scope of what's considered okay reality will be okay, and those dissenters who are outside the realm of reality will be deemed wrong, and the government will have to deal with them in one way or the other. I mean, the problem right now, we're told by the author of this article, is right now the federal government's response to disinformation, domestic extremism is haphazard and spread across multiple agencies. And we can't handle it. QAnon and all these conspiracy theories and 9/11 and all this stuff, and we can't handle it. We need to coordinate. We need one guy. We need one agency. I mean, this is America. I mean, it is truly, I mean, this is experts at Harvard, at Stanford, giving this guy from the New York Times their suggestions. Literally a centralized task force that will deal with disinformation. It says here, now it won't just declare what's right and what's wrong, what's disinformation, what's not, but we'll actually act on this. And for example, this is an example, and I'm quoting from the article. This task force could also meet regularly with tech platforms, Twitter, Facebook, those guys, and push, nudge, push or nudge. It's a governmental task force. So pushing means coercing. Okay. I can't even read a sentence without commenting on it 3 times. This task force could also meet regularly with tech platforms and push for structural changes that could help those companies tackle their own extremism and misinformation problems. The government is just here to help. This isn't authoritarianism. This isn't trying to tell the tech platforms what they can and cannot publish. We're just trying to help you solve your own problems. And we're not going to force you. We're going to push you, nudge you, encourage you, dangle a gun in front of you, dangle regulations in front of them. For example, the article goes on to say, it could formulate safe harbor exemptions that would allow platforms to share data about QAnon and other conspiracy theory communities with researchers, that seems pretty lame, and government agencies without running afoul of privacy laws. So we get to define what is untrue, and then we get to eliminate privacy laws as they relate to the people we believe are spreading ideas that are untrue, so that we can then put these people in, and this is me adding, they don't actually write this, in re-education camps. You see, now I understand why nobody's upset at the re-education camps in China. Because that's what they want to do here. What is the outcome of this? After we research, and by violating privacy laws, we get all this information about all these people, what are we going to do with them? What are we going to do with them? Debate them? I mean, we have to stop them spreading disinformation. So do we lock them up? That's kind of cool. I think re-education. I think Mao or Stalin's re-education camps are a good model. We'll send them into the countryside and we'll teach them what reality really is. And this is this last sentence of this paragraph, right? And it could become this social media sending them information about people who are spreading conspiracy theories. And it could become the tip of the spear for the federal government's response to the reality crisis. The tip of the spear. Tip of the spear, another form of violence, by the way. And what is if this is just the tip of the spear, what's the rest of the spear? What are we going to do with these people? Now, of course, this all centers around social media, so that's not the end of it, right? Because other experts, of course, the whole article is couched by expert says, other experts say something else. Well, several experts recommended that the Biden administration push for much more transparency into the inner workings of the black box algorithms that Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube and other major platforms use to rank feeds, recommended content, and usher users into private groups, many of which have been responsible for amplifying conspiracy theories and extremist views. By the way, extremist views. I wonder who that is. Do you think my views might be viewed as extremist? I've called for total war in the Middle East to crush the Islamists. That sounds a little extreme. I've called for complete separation of state from economics. Ooh, that sounds really extreme. What about total separation of state from education? No public education? Whoa, you're a real extremist. So they want transparency. Notice the terminology, transparency. No, the government wants control over the algorithms. To quote one of these experts, we must open the hood on social media so that civil rights lawyers, and real watchdog organizations can investigate human rights abuses enabled or amplified by technology. Now notice speech becomes a crime. Speech becomes an abuse. Speech becomes a violation of human rights. So they want to monitor our speech by having an open hood, the open access to everything and anything in social media. There's actually an act in Congress. I mean, I read this stuff and I go, no, they're making this up. But there's actually an act in Congress proposed by 2 House Democrats. And it's called, this is the name of the act. You can look this up. It's called the Protecting Americans from Dangerous Algorithms Act. I think this is actually like a Reddit thing, because what they're really going after is all those hedge funds who use algorithms to short. The Protecting Americans from Dangerous Algorithms Act. Now, what this would do is amend Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act to remove large tech platforms' legal immunity for violence or violence inciting content. By the way, they have no legal immunity for violence or violence inciting. Well, they do, I guess. They have. Yes, they do, because it's the people inciting who don't have the immunity. That their feed ranking and recommendation system amplifies, while preserving their immunity for other user-generated content. I wonder if when Antifa uses some of these platforms to organize, that will count as amplifying violence. And they're saying, look, these social media companies won't want to cooperate. Right? They won't want to do this. And we're going to have to force them to do it. And how are we going to force them to do it? Well, we're going to threaten them. I mean, literally, this is in the article. One of the experts says, we're going to threaten them with antitrust. Here's the quote from the article. Last year, under the threat of a forced breakup, TikTok pledged to allow experts to examine its algorithm to prove it wasn't maliciously manipulating American users. Given their current, this is unbelievable, given their current antitrust issues, other social networks might respond to a similar nudge, not force, not coercion, nudge in the direction of transparency. I don't know. I, for one, I want to explode. Explode. They're going to nudge social networks in the direction of transparency. I didn't support the banning of Parler. I supported Amazon's right not to deal with Parler. And it's in the courts, and the courts will settle it. Parler sued Amazon. They asked for an injunction. The court said, no, Amazon is within its legal right to not deal with you, so far as we can tell. So there was no injunction, but there will be a day in court, and we'll see. Apple and Google have every right not to carry apps they don't like, they don't want, for whatever reason. See, the difference is that I'm, on principle, opposed to government interference in private property, whether it comes from the left or the right. Some people are willing to ignore private property, ignore issues of free speech, ignore anything, as long as it attacks the left. They don't care about free speech. They don't care about private property. They don't care about freedom of association. They don't care about anything if it's an attack on the left. This sentence, given the current antitrust issues, other social networks might respond to a similar nudge in the direction of transparency. Now, it turns out, and this is what is so scary about all this. This is the New York Times, this is Biden, this is the left, this is what the left wants to do. I don't think Biden would do it, but some people on the left want to do this. Who is going to oppose them? Who is going to stop them? Is it Ted Cruz, who also wants to use antitrust issues to manipulate social networks in accordance with his agenda? Is it Donald Trump, who constantly went after Jeff Bezos because he didn't like what the Washington Post was writing about him, and often said libel laws should be changed, by the way, made more loose, which would be interesting given all the lawsuits right now over libel, whether he still holds that opinion. Libel laws, the standard should be lowered so he could sue newspapers for writing things that he didn't like about himself, even though he's a public figure and a president. Who's going to stop these people? Who's going to stand in their way? Who is going to defend our rights to free speech, our rights to free association, our rights to live as individuals? I mean, the left is bonkers. This is the worst of communism. Truth commissions, reality czars, tip of spears, blackmailing social media into revealing their algorithms so that experts, government experts, can go inside and look through them. Oh my God, Ted Cruz invoked Ayn Rand today? Ugh. I wish he'd just stop. Ayn Rand has nothing to do with Ted Cruz. That association will do us more harm than anything. So we have a reality crisis in America today. Yes, we do. We have a truth crisis in America today. Yes, we do. But government cannot solve it. Government must not solve it. Government should not be in the business of what is true or what is not. Government should not be in the business of what ideas are right and what ideas are wrong. There should be a complete and utter separation between ideas and government. Government is there to protect our rights. And one of the real evils of the world in which we live, the mixed economy in which we live, is that government is ever encroaching over more and more and more of our life, including now not just the economy, not just education, not just science. But now government wants to get involved in the truth business, in the expert business, in the algorithm business, in the re-education business. And of course, one of these experts blames it all on the fact that we have systemic racism. And as long as we have systemic racism, these problems will continue. But has anybody ever tested the truth, the reality of systemic racism? I did last summer and found it lacking, found it unreal, found it detached from reality, found it untrue. This is insane. This is not just the end of America, it's the end of life. It's the end of any form of freedom. It's the end of liberty. It's where we're heading. So in an effort to attain sanity, to go see what the opposition is thinking and how they can combat the left, stand up for individual rights, stand up for individualism, stand up for truth, stand up for reason, I turned to the Federalists for help, for guidance, for maybe a little bit of encouragement that all is not lost. We have the Republicans to save us, to march to the rescue. The conservatives are coming to help us. They will stand up against the left. Now, the Federalist, which basically publishes things that they believe in, they have a pretty rigorous editorial standards, I guess. Published an op-ed by Russ Vought, V-O-U-G-H-T. And it's got a very inspiring title. How to Lead the United States into an American Spring. All right. Maybe, finally, we've got some people willing to go out there and save this country. Save this country. Right? And he basically says, where do we go from here? What are we going to do? Right? He says one of the things that inspired us about Trump was that he stood up to the left, that he was a champion who had the stomach and the strength to sustain the withering fire of his adversaries, the left. So what do we do now that Trump is gone? How do we fight the left's reality czars and truth commissions? What do we do? He says, we have to sustain our counter-assault. We have to keep going after them. And I'm going, yeah, we've got to go after the left because you have to go after truth commissions and reality czars. So what does he suggest? He says we have to broaden the movement in truth and resolution. Yes, truth. I'm all for truth. Real truth, not the truth czar truth. We've got to have an America First agenda that really befits America. America First politics. So this guy is starting a new center. We don't have enough think tanks in the world. Certainly not enough conservative think tanks in the world. So he's starting a new center called the Center for American Restoration. And there's a lot of money behind this. and a corresponding activist organization. So these guys are serious. Called the American Restoration Action Committee, I guess. Now, what is their agenda? What are they going to go after the left with? What truths do they have on their side? It's great. It's America first. I love America first. Ayn Rand was America first. I don't think Donald Trump was America first, but Ayn Rand was. In a real sense. I think Trump was America last. Trump was Trump first. Or Trump's image first. So what are they about? What is the America First agenda? What is the agenda that is going to combat the left and going to provide a credible antidote to the reality czars of the Biden administration? Well, he says, we have to restore an old consensus in America. Something, okay, old consensus, maybe he's talking about the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, like better conservatives do. I understand restore because he's a conservative, so it has to go backwards, has to go into history. But what is this old consensus in America that we have forgotten that he wants to restore? Here it is. Drum roll, please. What we need to restore is the truth. The truth. That we are a people for God, for country, and for community. This is the right. This is your conservatives. These are the people who are going to save you from the truth czars. America's essential characteristic, the essential truth about America, is that we are a people for God, for country, for community. Not individual rights, not freedom and liberty, not free speech, which would be a good counter to truth czars, not a marketplace for goods, services, or for ideas. Yeah, here we go. Tom in the chat, this is it, right? Here it is. The only thing that can defeat the materialism of the left is the faith of the right. The truth is that only through Christ is victory possible. Tom, go away. You're in the wrong place. Christ is the Antichrist. The whole mythology of Christ is one of the most evil mythologies ever. And I say that with the intent of maybe convincing you to go away. Because you're in the wrong place, and I'm not going to convince you otherwise. So it's hopeless for you and me. It is true that as presented here, the only thing that can defeat the materialism of the left is the faith of the right, and that's what the right believes, and that is the death of America. The death of America. Faith is an alternative to the left. Faith is an alternative to a truth czar. Faith is an alternative to a truth commission, a truth task force. Faith, yes, emotions are the only alternative. The only way to fight the emotions of the left are the emotions of the right. Because what is faith? Faith is just an emotion. Tom believes in Christ. Muhammad believes in Allah. Why? Emotion, not logic, not science, not reason, not study. And some guys believe in crystals and in, I don't know, Buddha and in Jehovah and all kinds of, Faith is emotion. Faith is the negation of reason. Faith is the negation of truth because it's a negation of reality. It's a negation of the primacy of reality, and it's a negation of the only tool to know reality, which is reason. And that's exactly the point. The point is we live in a world in which we have two alternatives. The emotion of the left or the emotion of the right? The lies, conspiracy theories, voodoo economics of the left, the lies, conspiracy theories, voodoo economics of the right. Faith of the left in, I don't know, climate change, faith in the right of the resurrection of Christ and his ability to save us all. The story of Christ has to be one of the most immoral stories in all of human history. A son who would sacrifice his son, not for his son's sins, not as punishment for the sins of his son, but sacrifice his son in the worst, most cruel death possible for the sins of other people, for the sins of the other, the ultimate sacrifice. But of course, this is a religion that builds on a God who tells Abraham to go sacrifice his son with no explanation asked for. Just, yes, sir. Off I go to kill my son because you told me. We're between religion and religion, emotion and emotion, irrationality and irrationality, unreality and unreality. But Yaron, you reject science like evolutionary psychology because it conflicts with your ideology. No, I reject it because it doesn't qualify as science based on a scientific method. It's storytelling. It's ex post storytelling. It's filled with confirmation bias. Its statistical analysis is all filled with confirmation bias. And honest people who are looking at evolutionary psychology would admit that. And our understanding of evolution, put aside evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology is still a work in progress. And we have very little really good understanding of psychology. Now you want to take a science that still we're learning a lot in, like evolution, and a science that really is still to get really off the ground, like psychology, and you want to merge them and pretend that that's a science with definitive, unequivocally truths? Give me a break. Objectivity. Just because something calls itself a science doesn't make it such. Just because the left claims to be advocates for reason doesn't make them such. Just because the right claims they support capitalism doesn't make it so. Any science that rejects free will, rejects the power of reason, is not a science. It's voodoo. So if you can build a science around free will and around evolution, yeah, I'm sure there's some really interesting things we can say about the intersection of psychology and evolution. I haven't seen anybody build that science. I haven't seen that theory. I haven't seen the empirical studies that support it. Not that links You don't judge science on its predictability ability. Sorry, I do not accept Popper's view of science. I do not accept it. It has done amazing damage to the whole field of science, to empirical research, to the way science is conducted. Even Milton Friedman was succumbed, and the worst essay Milton Friedman ever wrote was his Popperian defense of the Popperian scientific method. So, no, I don't think falsifiability and predictability are what defines the scientific method. And it is true that in a few millennium we will see, I mean, in 50 years, you don't have to wait millennium, in 50 years, people will look back at our understanding of psychology today, if civilization advances, right? And look back and laugh at us and think we were like Stone Age. And look at look at the whole idea of evolutionary psychology, the way it's presented today, as pre-science, as primitive. That's in 50 years, never mind 100 or 200 years. Again, assuming civilization continues and it doesn't deteriorate. So, what the right is proposing is that we embrace collectivism and God as the saviors of America. That we fight the left over its secularism. He wants to make, he wants conservative policy priorities be focused on bringing God back into the discussion and bringing community back into the discussion. I don't know who Wanda Friedman is talking about. All right, anyway. So he says, nor do modern conservatism's, he's criticizing modern conservatives, nor do modern conservatism's policy priorities provide a satisfying answer to the despair and loneliness of a world that has forgotten God and abandoned community. And then for country, he says conservatives have forgotten what it means to have an America first. We have plundered the American economy, he says, allowed the plunder of the American economy by multinational corporations eager to claim the benefit of American law while disclaiming all responsibility to provide remunerative employment to American workers. And then, of course, community. The problem is that we fail to distinguish between freedom and autonomy. Freedom is not about the individual. Freedom is about the community. Freedom is about the collective. I mean, if you want, you can read this article in The Federalist. It's sickening. Truly sickening. These are the alternatives we face. This is what politics has to offer us today. And who is worse? I don't know. To me, the question is who can be more successful. And I'm on record as saying I think the right has more claim on the American spirit than the left, and therefore they can be more successful. Therefore, authoritarianism is more likely to come from the right than from the left. But who is more scary? They're both unbelievably scary. And if the authoritarian comes from the left, it's not like that's a relief. It's horrific. Either way you go. You want to embolden authoritarians of left or right. Or you want to strike. You want to shrug. And objectivists need to shrug. Not from life, but they have to shrug from politics in the sense of not accepting the status quo. We have no place in American politics today. We're not of the right and we're not of the left. We have no place. We're homeless. Not homeless because anybody kicked us out. Homeless because we have shrugged. We are not participating. We're not involved. And those objectivists who are on crusades to defend Trump or to defend the right against the evil left, I think are making a dramatic, futile mistake, error. They are embracing a culture that we should not be embracing, a world we should not be embracing, a political system, political culture we should not be embracing. We should be talking about alternatives to these two. We should be talking about why they're both wrong. not the nuances of which one is a little worse than the other. Authoritarianism is evil. Whether it's Christian authoritarianism or egalitarian authoritarianism, they're both evil. Maybe the egalitarians will kill more people. You don't measure evil that way. Not when you're fighting, not when you're trying to survive. A pox on both their houses. And so many now buy into this idea that the only way to fight the left is through religion. People who used to be atheists have abandoned objective reality, have abandoned truth, have abandoned facts, reason. That's what it means to say that only through faith can we win. It means we can't win through reason. Whoops, can't. Reason doesn't work. And by doing that, we lose. We all lose. The only way we can win this, the only way we can win this is not by siding with Republicans or Democrats, not by endorsing conservatives or liberals, not by going left or right. The only way we can win this is through reason, is by challenging both, standing up to both, revealing both for the wacky anti-human life ideas that they embrace, and standing up for reality, for truth, for reason, for facts, for thinking, and for the individual. Notice that that is never in the discussion. God, country, community. There's no place for individual there. There's no place for rights there. There's no place for liberty and freedom there. But that is the new right. That is who Trump has ennobled to take over the Republican Party. Ennobled and enabled. And that who is winning on the right, and we know who's winning on the left. Yes, the Federalists is that bad. It never used to be. But since Trump, even some people who are better have become much, much worse. This is what I told you would happen with Trump. And this is why I view Trump as so evil. Not because of his policies, but because of what he made possible. What his rhetoric, his attitude, his character, his persona, his anti-intellectualism would make possible. And it's exactly what's happened. The right is now God, country, community. Who's left with individualism? It's us, guys. We're it. The 139 people listening to this show are not all of us on board. So the numbers are small. Yeah, instead of reading the Federalist, read the Federalist Papers. All right, let's do some super chat questions. And yes, please feel free to use the super chat. Don't forget before you leave to like the show. We have a lot more people watching than liking, so please like the show before you leave and share. Read the Fountainhead, read Atlas Shrugged. But please use the super chat. It's a opportunity to support the show, support what we stand for, what I stand for. If you're against both reality czars and faith, country, community, then support a voice that speaks up against both. Right? All right, let's see. All right, let's do the super chat, the $50 one first. It's your emotional state, not just a product. Isn't your emotional state not just a product of your ideas and evaluations? If you're on your period, or you're hungry, or feeling irritable and hostile because the chemicals in your brain are firing, even if you're perfect philosophically. Well, your emotional state is ultimately a product of your ideas and evaluations. Now, that is not independent of certain external conditions that, you might say, my life is basically determined by the choices that I make. Except when I get into a car accident, somebody slams into me. That's not a choice I made. Right? Richard, I shoo-shooed Tom away because Tom has been a disruptive force in this chat for many a session. Not because I don't think reason should at least be attempted. Some people are beyond reason. Some people cannot be convinced. And I've concluded Tom can't. So I asked him to leave. That is not a repudiation of reason. Not an expression of futility of reason. It's a futility of Tom. So you got to be careful how you generalize from one observation or generalize. Why do I do 4 shows a week, every week for hours and hours and hours? Because this is the best use of my time to make money, because I don't care about influencing people. I don't care about changing people's minds. I don't believe reason is efficacious. I don't think people can change their minds. Why would I do this show if I didn't think that? Anyway. So in general, your emotional state is a product of your ideas and evaluations. It is. But your momentary emotion, your momentary irritability because you're hungry, or because there's some spike in some hormone in your body that you don't understand, or because somebody just stepped on your foot. Yeah, to some extent, that is outside of your control. I would say the more whole of a person you are, the more integrated you are, the more philosophically sound you are, the more psychologically healthy you are, the more your values are all integrated, the less impact your hormones have on you. The less impact the fact that you're hungry has on you. You feel hungry, you feel those prangs of irritability coming on top of you. You might sit down and calm yourself and relax. You can survive hunger. You've done it before, you can do it again. The same is true of hormones, the same is true of somebody stepping on your foot. Some people, you step on their foot by accident, of course, go into an unbelievable, state of mind and attack you and yell and scream. And, and some people say, whoa. And, as soon as they discover it's an accident, it's over. Some people get into a car accident and it destroys their day, their week, their month. And some people get into a car accident and it sucks, but they get over it quickly. So emotional state is more than the moment. It's your state of being. And I think in the end, it is conditioned by it is determined by ideas and evaluations again, but that's when you're fully integrated, and I don't think any of us are fully integrated. It's very hard to be when you're raised and grew up in an environment that is far from completely rational. So we're all conflicted, and it's very difficult to clear out the garbage. It's what you should strive to do, what you should work to do. And of course, emotions should never be ignored. Emotions tell you you're feeling something wrong. It might be justified, it might not be. But it tells you, examine what's going on. Or positive, right? Emotions can be positive, they're not all negative. What's going on? Why am I feeling so good? Why am I feeling so bad? What does this tell me about myself? What does this tell me about what's going on? But you have to think about it. The emotion itself is not cognition. The emotion is pointing. It points you in a direction to focus your mind on. What is the difference between a concept and an abstraction? Well, a concept is a form of abstraction. But an abstraction can be a proposition. It doesn't have to just be a concept. So all concepts are abstractions. Not all abstractions are concepts. Now, somebody who knows epistemology better than me might jump in and correct me, but I think that is true. So proposition, a theory, there are many forms in which an abstraction can appear. Right? Let's see. Some say reason works sometimes, but other times you need to use faith. I think they use faith when reason doesn't give the answer they wanted, or when reason doesn't give an answer. And this is typical of religion, right? Reason doesn't have answers to certain things yet. One of the things you have to learn to be able to do is say, I don't know. But the fact is that faith often is introduced in the gaps where you don't have answers provided by reason. So for primitive societies, it might have been, why does the river, why are there tides? Well, there must be some God. There must be something, some faith, some story I can tell to explain it. Why does the sun rise and set? Well, there must be a God that... And everything we don't understand, we lump into faith. We lump into God. And in that sense, monotheism, Judaism, was a huge innovation. Because basically what they said was, instead of having all these disparate gods to explain disparate phenomena, that's kind of silly. Let's just aggregate all these gods into one, and he is the thing that explains all the things we don't know. And when you talk to religious Jews, real religious, like ultra-Orthodox, often their definition of God will boil down to exactly that. For them, God is all that we don't know. Yet. So one of the problems is that people don't like the uncertainty of saying, I don't know. And what they do is instead they say, he did it. The explanation is there. Right? He has a cause. He has a reason. It's often a consequence of laziness in this context. Why were 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust? What kind of God, why would that happen? Well, you could study history. You could study ideas. You could figure out why that happened, what the causal factors were to make that happen. Or you could say, who knows, God has a plan. But there's a lot we don't know. As a species, never mind as individuals, in terms of nobody knows. About physics, about subatomic particles, about lots of things. And you used to say, I don't know. And then, of course, yes, Jennifer's completely right that when people get an answer they don't like from reason, well, that can't be right. Right, God? I'll believe in that stuff. And particularly in a world in which reason is not taken seriously, but also how many people practice it? How many people actually do it? So, yes, faith is done for lots of different psychological reasons. Low self-esteem, the fact that somebody doesn't think they're good at it, at reasoning. Faith is much easier. You read a book, all the truth is right there. All right, Ryan Woods. Ryan says, hey, you're on my journey. Studying objectivism has yielded self-esteem, confidence, and a higher happiness. Great. It's like a fog slowly lifting. Exactly. Do you think that most people don't know there is a fog? Or do they see it but ignore it? That's a great question. I think most people know there's a fog. They don't articulate it that way. But do you remember how in Atlas Shrugged, who is John Galt is an expression people say because they know something's wrong with the world. Something's not quite right. Something's not quite there. And they don't know what it is. They can't put their finger on it. In some sense, they don't want to know what it is because it scares them. They feel alienated. There's a great essay in Capitalism, Not an Unknown Ideal by Nathaniel Branden on alienation. It's really good. They feel alienated. They feel detached. They feel removed from reality, from the world. Trump voters, not everybody who voted for Trump, the Trump fanatics, are alienated from the culture in which they live. They don't understand what's going on in the world around them. They don't get it. In many respects, they're stuck 50 years ago in mentality and technology and attitudes about the world, about themselves. And they're alienated, they're removed. There's a fog. And they know there's a fog. And they're trying to see beyond the fog, but they don't know that the tool to see through the fog is reason. It's reality. It's opening their eyes. Instead, they double down on their devotion to their religion. They double down in their devotion to Trump and their tribe and their political leaders. They double down in their devotion to faith, country, and community. And all that does, by the way, is increase the fog. So you have a society that people are losing their jobs, but they're not expected to move to where their jobs are, and they're told this is caused by globalization or by capitalism or by the elites or by who knows what. Nobody explains anything to them. If only the government stimulated more, if they gave us a $2,000 check. Remember that Trump came up with the idea of a $2,000 check to everybody as a stimulus instead of the $600? That Biden has only picked it up from Trump. They hear these things and it just makes the fog thicker. And at some point, the fog becomes so thick that they're willing to latch on to anybody who will give them a hand who claims to have a path through. And that's the authoritarian, the dictator of the future. So it's not even that they ignore it. They're looking, they're searching, but not using reason. Using faith, using emotion. That's what they're using as their guide, and we know that with that as the guide, the fog only gets more thick. But that's why you see people that are so confused and they're so susceptible to conspiracy theories, so susceptible to simple explanations, because they view that as clearing the fog. Why is QAnon so popular? Because he has explanations. It's simple. The world is screwed up because there's a cabal of Democrats who are basically committed to having sex with children. They're pedophiles. And they want to destroy this country because they hate it. And they don't want anybody to discover that they have this pedophilia ring. And they're manipulating everybody. And they've got the deep state working for them. And they have destroyed America from within for decades. And now that Biden has won, they are in control of everything. Okay, now I get why there's fog. I didn't see. Now I see. Or, in the old days, the cabal of Jews, they're running the world. You lost your job because some Jew in Switzerland decided you should lose your job. They are micromanaging the world. Oh, okay, now I understand why I lost your job. Because it's a much simpler explanation, much clearer than the fog created by the idea that your skills are not needed anymore. You better retrain. You better find a different job because this one is gone. A robot can do it much better than you can. People don't want to hear the truth. You find the truth clears the fog. But for most people, the truth is scary. Scary. And fog overwhelms them. All right, don't forget to support the show by using the Super Chat feature. You can ask any question, and the more dollars you put on the Super Chat, the more likely it is that I will answer the question. Also, don't forget to like the show before you leave. We're up to almost 150 people watching, but only 100 likes, so please like the show. All right. Is there a fine line between genius and insanity? I don't think so. I don't see that fine line. I think the way society treats geniuses, it drives them to insanity. But I don't think inherent in genius is insanity. I don't think Ayn Rand was insane. I don't think Einstein was insane. I don't think that, I mean, some geniuses are insane, but I have a feeling it's more because of how society's viewed them and the conclusions they come about it and the way they're treated throughout their childhood that drives them towards the insanity. How is the U.S. not in a zero-sum conflict with China? The enemy gets a vote, and the CCP has basically declared a Cold War on the U.S. We are facilitating the rise of an enemy. Sorry, I'm not a whale yet. I don't see the zero-sumness of it. Right now, we're individuals in America trade with individuals in China. We benefit from that trade. They benefit from that trade. That's not zero-sum. It's win-win. We wouldn't do the trade if we didn't benefit from it. Now, if we get into a military conflict with China, that is not just zero-sum, that's negative-sum. But I don't know what it means the enemy gets a vote. Who is the enemy? I don't know who the enemy is. Democrats, Republicans, both? I don't know who the enemy is. The CCP has basically declared a Cold War on the United States. Are you sure? Or did the United States declare Cold War on the CCP? I don't know. I mean, if there is a Cold War, it's not clear to me who declared it on whom. Suddenly Trump came into office trying to declare a Cold War on the CCP. And not that I don't think it's justified necessarily to declare Cold War on the CCP, although they did a pretty pathetic job of it all. Why do they have to be an enemy? Why does China have to be an enemy? Why can't we deal with China in a way that encourages freedom in China, that encourages China to reform, that encourages China to become less authoritarian and become, therefore, not an enemy, but just a trading partner? I mean, it's good for America that China becomes the biggest economy in the world. They have a lot more people than we are. It'll mean that they become rich. It'll mean that they'll become a better trading partner with us. But it's much, much better for us that China become free. If you mean the vote in the UN Security Council, then yeah, I mean, but that's the UN, right? I don't believe the United States should be in the UN. I mean, I'm truly America first. I think the United States should take the UN, put them on a boat, and ship them to Caracas or to Tehran, and they can run the UN from there. They take up very expensive New York real estate, and why do we give them money? Why are we funding the UN? I don't believe we should be in the UN at all. At all. So that has nothing to do with China. We were in the UN when Stalin had a veto. Stalin. And then we let Mao Zedong in, and we kicked out Taiwan. And that was America's doing. So American foreign policy is a complete and utter disaster. But if we had the right approach to China, China could rise as an economic superpower without becoming an enemy of the United States. But the more authoritarian it is, the more of an enemy it will become. My friend doesn't believe the election fraud, but totally believes in the conspiracies about why GME, etc. weren't allowed to be traded. Your friend, needs to study the facts. Reality is what it is. There's no alternative realities. Now, I can understand why he suspects it, but all you have to look is the way the market works, the mechanisms of the marketplace. But it doesn't really matter. If Citadel had told Robinhood, don't let these people trade, that's possible. Citadel's a big player. Before you go and poke at giants, before you go stab giants and things that you're going to bring down Wall Street, and when you think that you're going to bring down the hedge fund industry and you're more powerful than them, you better have a plan, and you better know what you're doing. And you better not use a broker who gives you trades for free, because nothing in life is free. So if it's free, there are going to be strings attached. But with, the guys who invented the Reddit play were brilliant. And if they got out in time, they made a fortune. Everybody else who got suckered into it
Found this on the web.
is a sucker. And many people have lost a lot of money on the play. I will tell you that Wall Street and hedge funds net are way ahead. Way ahead. And it doesn't matter what Robinhood would have done. It doesn't matter what Robinhood would have done. You see, even Psycho Speak believes in the conspiracy theories about Robinhood. So, we know exactly why Robinhood stopped. The same reason why other brokers stopped. It's because of basically margin calls. They were called. It's why they had to raise $2.4 billion from investors. You think investors were happy to give Robinhood $2.4 billion? No. And the investors are powerful people. But they gave $2.4 billion people. They gave them $2.4 billion because it was a margin call. That's how the economy works. You can't borrow money indefinitely in the private economy without being asked to pony up. Robinhood had to pony up, and it cannot use its clients' accounts to pony up. That's illegal. So it has to raise capital. So it had to stop and raise capital, which it did. So you just got to focus on facts and reality. And how many people out there actually understand? I went through this in my Finance 101 episode. How many people actually understand how markets work? How stocks get cleared? What happens when you buy a stock through Robinhood? What are the steps? How many entities are involved? And what kind of capital has to be put up? I mean, the people who started the whole GME thing knew exactly what they were doing. They got out quickly. And probably told people, oh no, stay with it. Just keep buying. I mean, you were scammed. All right, you really think someone like Hitler was evading his own evil? Yes. You don't think he got a thrill, an overwhelming sense of excitement from destroying man's highest values? Yeah, I do think he got a thrill, an overwhelming sense of excitement from destroying man's highest values. But that's part of the evasion. You're evading your own nature. You're evading what it means to be human. That's what nihilism is. People get a kick out of nihilism. Right? People get a kick out of nihilism. They enjoy burning stuff down. But that's evading their own evil. That's why they can get a kick out of it. If they didn't evade their own evil, they wouldn't get a kick out of it. They wouldn't get the thrill. The thrill is a product of the evasion. It doesn't last. Ultimately, they are miserable, pathetic human beings. All of them. Is the reason mankind isn't ready for objectivism because objectivist sense of life is more benevolent than people can presently comprehend? That's part of it. But it's the values. It's the way of thinking about the world. It's the reality orientation. It's the rejection of religion. And these ideas have to start being embedded in people when they're young. And it needs to be part of, like, I read you the two articles, left and right. I mean, reality is nowhere to be found in either one of those articles. We're moving today away from objectivism because religion is dominating and mysticism of the left is dominating. You have to bring in a culture of reality orientation, of reason, before you can ever get to objectivism. People are not really, because they're not oriented towards reality. They're not oriented towards reason. And that's, the culture needs to change. And it has to start impacting young people. What's one thing that annoys your wife about you? One thing. One thing that annoys my wife. I don't know. Lots of things, I think. I am consumed by my iPhone too much. I spend too much. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. iPhone. I've got iPhone. That's my one. Particularly when we're traveling and when we're out on a date or when we're out somewhere and I'm stick my head in my iPhone. In your 12-2 debate with Toby Keith, you seem dismissive of cancel culture. Have you changed your view at all since then? No, I wasn't dismissive of cancel culture. I think cancel culture is horrific. I think one has to separate cancel culture from issues of the right to speech. Free speech as a right. So I think cancel culture as practiced by the left in the United States is awful. The idea that they won't hear certain things, that they don't want to take certain things. Now, I don't want to hear certain things. I would walk out of a room. I would kick somebody out of my house if they said certain things. So I'm all for canceling people in that sense. But the scope of the discussion I'm willing to have with people is very wide, and I think that's healthy. I think cancel culture, as it expresses itself today, has narrowed the scope of what's acceptable, not what's legal, what's acceptable to talk about, way too narrowly. And by doing so, inhibits people's ability to think for themselves, to explore, to evaluate. And I think radicalizes people because they can't, in horrific ways. Now, I will do a whole show on this because it's an important issue. And you have to understand the difference between having a right to free speech and what you think the standards of speech should be in a civilized society. And as a civilized society, some speech should be not tolerated, not in the sense of arrested if you speak it, but in a sense of, if you're going to talk like that, I don't want to have anything to do with you. That's the sense in which you have canceled, right? But once that becomes narrow, it's culture destroying. And that's what the left is doing today. And by the way, the right is doing that. You can't talk, for example, about immigration with anybody on the right. Right? That's beyond the pale. Value for value, baby. Did you read the Wall Street Journal article about growing mediocrity in America? SAT subject tests being stopped for equality. Seems the only place left to celebrate excellence is sports. Absolutely. I've been saying that for years and years. We are in the throes of an egalitarian society. That's what the left is pushing. And there is no more evil in ideology than egalitarianism. I think Leonard Peikoff says that in the dim hypothesis. There's no question. There is no more evil in ideology than egalitarianism. The problem is that the only opposition to egalitarianism is today the religious right. And that's just horrific. That's just terrible. And the more we give power to the religious right, I think the more the egalitarians will get powerful. But those are the choices. Which way do you want to die? So yeah, I'll look for that article because I definitely think that's the case. Even in sports, in sports for children, they're not allowed to keep score anymore in some places. Not allowed to keep score anymore because you don't want to have winners and losers because that goes against the egalitarianism. Do you find libertarians are more open to being persuaded by objectivist morality than others? No, I don't think so. Libertarians are typically ever been exposed to objectivism and reject it and embrace subjectivism. So libertarians typically embrace subjectivism and are not interested in objectivity. Not interested in objectivity. That's my experience, particularly in morality. They're quite interested in objectivity in economics, but they're not interested in objectivity in morality. It's why they're not objectivists. Libertarians have no excuse. Most of them have read Ayn Rand. They know what she argues, and they reject her in spite of that. Good evening, Professor Book. Professor, you shouldn't call me professor. I'm not really a professor anymore. Would you please compile a reading list of books you recommend beyond those of Ayn Rand? Yeah, I'll try. I keep meaning to do that. I will try to do that. Does religion provide a reason for why honesty is good? Yeah, because lying hurts your neighbor. Because God said that honesty is good. But mainly it's about the damage it does to others. It's about if you lie, you're, in a sense, trying to deceive God, even though you can't because he knows everything. And that's wrong. I think that's the reason. It has nothing to do with making you more successful at living, which is objectivism's view. And the definition of honesty between religion and objectivism is different. Objectivism, honesty is a commitment to reality, a commitment to facts, commitment to truth. For religion, honesty is about not lying. Not lying is just an aspect of honesty for objectivism, not the core issue. All right, I asked the Cold War China question. The enemy gets the vote was referring to China, not the UN China. Decided to wage a Cold War on us. I guess I still don't get where they get a vote. A vote where? Yeah, I mean, we should defend ourselves. I mean, if China hacks into our networks, we should send a bug that destroys every computer in their country. It's an act of war to hack into. See, I'm ruthless when it comes to these things. If I were president, if you mess with Americans, if you mess by violating the rights of Americans, I want to crush you. Now, I might not go to nuclear war with China because too many people, including Americans, would die. But yeah, I can do cyber warfare. You won't survive. That's the message to send the Chinese. You won't survive. But I also don't want to go to war with China over what's not war. That is, I want to say to China, I'm willing to trade with you. But if you go into Hong Kong, forget it. We'll trade because I'm not going to interfere with the rights of Americans to trade with you. But I'm going to withdraw my embassy. I'm going to withdraw all sanction from you. I'm going to kick myself and you out of the United Nations. I'm not going to sit with you at the WHO. I'm not going to sanction your regime anywhere, any place. So all the goodies that you get by being a civilized member of the international community, whatever the hell that means, you won't get. That's zero sum. Although it's not really, it's win-lose. You win, they lose. But it doesn't have to be a Cold War. Because if America were tough, if America was known as somebody you don't mess with, then they would behave themselves. They would have never gone into Hong Kong if I were president. And I think Xi would not be president because I would do anything I could to undermine him, undercut him. Trump did the opposite. So, and Biden will do the opposite. So, no, I wouldn't talk to them. I would make it clear what I thought of them. I would make it clear to the Chinese people what I thought of their leaders. I mean, think about what Ronald Reagan said about the Soviet Union and multiply that by many, many times. And then the Cold War goes away. I mean, I don't think the Cold War with the Soviet Union was particularly impressive. We could have, they would have lost much earlier. But I wouldn't stop trading as long as it wasn't a real war. Or as long as I didn't think they were moving towards a real war. All right, Daniel asked, last question, I think. Tom Woods mentioned on his podcast yesterday that he won't be attending your debate with John Mackey. He didn't say why, though. Well, I assume he's boycotting me. I mean, I don't know. Does he live there? Does he live in the villages? And he won't be attending because he doesn't want to have anything to do with me? I wouldn't be surprised, right? I don't want to have anything to do with him. So, I mean, the people associated with the Mises Institute view me as the devil. They've said, they've written, they put that in writing. So he lives in the Orlando area. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to go see the devil speak. Why is it a fake question? Anyway, that's the world in which we live. Why is it a fake question? I don't get why Daniel is a fake Daniel. Anyway, all right, guys. This was fun as always. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the show before you leave. A lot more viewers than likes, so jack up the likes there. Yeah, I guess it's gossipy. I don't know. Some gossipy stuff. Yeah, it wasn't a question. It was a statement. I answered your question, right? So anyway, I answered the gossip. Some gossip I don't mind answering. Yeah, like the show before you leave. That should be 140 likes. And don't forget to share. Don't forget to support the show. Really, really, really value your support. Particularly if you do it monthly. The steady monthly support is incredibly valuable. I can plan for it. I can estimate what I'm going to get. My income is going to be next year. Super Chat, very finicky. This month is going to be very low relative to last month, which was very high, all over the place, up and down, hard to keep track. So I like the monthly support, so you can do that on YBSshow.com/support. You can do it on Patreon. You can do it Subscribe Star. I know some people don't like me asking for support all the time, but the fact is that if you want people to support you, you have to ask them. I learned that a long time ago. If you don't ask, people typically just don't do it. So I'm asking. I'm reminding you that a trade is both directions. I'm providing a service. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody, because I won't probably see you until Saturday. I'm off to Denver tomorrow. I'll be talking to you next from a hotel room somewhere in California. If you want to sponsor a show, James asked, it's $1,000 to sponsor a show. You get to determine the theme. Just drop me an email at yuron@yuronbrookshow.com, yuron@yuronbrookshow.com, and tell me what you want me to talk about. And then you can do the $1,000 you can do on PayPal. I will be watching the movie that I promised to review, and somebody gave me $500 for, so that will be reviewed. And I've got one more sponsored show I have to do, which is on Atlas Shrugged, which I will try to do either next week or the week after that. But I'm open for show sponsorships. I love it. I love, I love getting paid to do this, but I also like that the ideas are coming from you and not just from me. So if you have ideas you'd like me to talk about, and you have the money and you're willing to deploy that money in this way, or to invest this money in this way, $1,000, I do any movie, any show you want. I have to watch Real Genius, and I'll tell you what I think about it, an honest opinion about it. Yes, you can sponsor a show. You can sponsor a series of shows. Lots of different ways in which you can contribute, in which you can support the Yaron Brooks Show and its continuation. All right, don't forget to like the show before you leave. So many of you are leaving without liking. Press the like. It's easy. Bye, everybody. I'll see you.